nice. Room service if I like, I order twice. Hibachi, got the gravy on the rice. Rolling in Mexico like
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome into another edition of the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. My name is Jeremy Betts. Welcome into the show. We are going to have a great one for you here today, as we always do, answering your questions, talking about what you want to talk about from or about the Pittsburgh Steelers here this week as training camp is about to get rolling, ladies and gentlemen. It is upon us. The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. That is the vibe that we're getting. The feeling is one of let's get football back. It just is. And the Steelers, I'm sure, are ready to get rolling on the season. And as fans, we could not be more ready. So let's get her done. I'm trying to get Andrew Wilbar on tonight, but he's having trouble logging in. So if he gets on, I'll bring him on. But if not, then we will just run it solo tonight. But yeah, trying to get Andrew Wilbar on. As soon as he comes on, I'll bring him in. We'll have conversations all together. But thanks to everyone for being patient with us as we were a little bit late getting started, trying to get Andrew's connectivity issues figured out. But we are going to roll with it at this point and see what happens. I'm texting him right now, actually, seeing if maybe he can't just hop in on his phone. So, yeah, let me do that real quick. Hey, Andrew, why don't you try to hop in on your phone? Question mark. There you go. Live texting here on the show. We won't do that every time, I promise, but we'll get that done. I'm just trying to get this efficient as possible here. So, but thank you all for tuning in. Already got 28 of you listening live, watching live. I appreciate, again, you guys coming in, even though we're a little bit behind. Man, camp is upon us, you guys. I'm excited to see the differences in this camp. There's a lot of new surrounding the Steelers, a lot of new on this roster, a lot of new in the coaching staff. And, you know, it is always exciting to see how the turnover plays itself out. And now we have like real change on offense, right? We have like real additions on that side of the ball and some additions by subtraction as well. And I just think that you're going to see something totally different from this group, more focused, more detail oriented. I've only been to one training camp, and it was last year under the Matt Canada offensive regime. And, you know, as just somebody sitting back watching, I didn't see any issues with the offensive understanding of the guys, with how they executed down the field as they were getting in. Hey, there he is, Andrew Wilbar. Welcome in, man. You made it on your phone.
I did, and I'm actually gonna. If you can maybe exit me from the screen for a minute, I'm going to try to recoup. Maybe on my vehicle, because I don't think this is gonna work for very long. But
okay,
I am here. I will be coming. Okay,
sounds good. We'll see you in just a sec. So when we get Andrew back, I'll bring him back on. But, you know, going back to what I was saying, I don't know unless I'm able to make it out this year what the difference is technically. Maybe some who have been to multiple camps under different offensive regimes could say it better than I could. Was Matt Canada's offense lacking detail even in training camp? And was it lacking an ability to adjust and to put different looks out there? If there's one thing we know about Arthur Smith, he knows how to show different looks. He knows how to run different things out of the same personnel groupings as well. And he knows how to bring detail. So I think it's something that will play into this training camp process, and it's going to be a huge part of how we see things go down. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up this question. Omar's burner by default is making us talk about it. Would it really be a 2024 Steelers offseason show without discussing Brandon Aiyuk? I wasn't going to even do it. So, but you brought it up, Omar's burner. And so I am going to say that, if you guys have comments or questions about Brandon Aiyuk, you can post those in here. I will talk about it. I will answer it. I just don't think it's happening, people. I don't think it's going to happen. You can hope beyond hope, but I just don't think it's going to happen for this guy to be in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform this year. It doesn't make sense for both parties at this point. And I don't think the 49ers are going to do anything with him. I don't think they're going to deal him. I think they're going to make him play for him or collect their fines, and they have every right to do that. He's under contract with him. So tough situation for Aiyuk. Tough for the Niners as well, in the fact that they are either going to be without their best offensive weapon outside of Christian McCaffrey, whether or not he sits out or is traded. I don't think that's a good situation for them. And if he does play, what's to say the smallest injury, he doesn't pull himself out? Hamstring's tight, doesn't play. So to preserve himself for his next team or his future. Andrew, welcome back. We're talking
Thank
Brandon.
you.
We don't want to talk Brandon Aiyuk, but we are talking Brandon Aiyuk, I think. So now that you're with us, let's just answer this question. Is Brandon Aiyuk going to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024? My answer is no. What's your answer?
I would agree it's no, and I don't know if you mentioned it already, but a big concern that I think we both have is bringing in another alpha into that room, competing with George Pickens to potentially be the one in this offense. There's just not a room for two guys who both think they're number one wide receivers. And in the situation that the Steelers are currently in, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think the more likely thing would be going after, say, a Tyler Lockett or someone like that if he becomes available by trade deadline, a guy who could ideally be a better number two wide receiver as opposed to going after another number one. That could cause a lot of heartache in that locker room.
Yeah, and I didn't mention the alpha dog mentality situation this time, but we have talked about it in the past. I think the bigger concern for me right now is what kind of Brandon Aiyuk are you going to get in 2024? I mean, if he ends up playing for the 49ers, there's no telling what brand of Aiyuk they'll get. Is he going to be fully committed to putting together a contract year season, or is he going to, at the first sign of potential injury, is he going to just pull back and say, well, I'm not ready to go. I'm not ready to go, and kind of ride this one out and get his big payday next year? If he were to be traded to a team like the Steelers, you can bet the Steelers aren't just going to hand over a blank check and say whatever you want. There's going to be some negotiation there. It could end up being just a 1-year rental for a team like the Steelers. But I don't know how that would all play out. It just seems too messy now to get into that if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially when you got a guy in Pickens that if you have the season you think he's going to have, you're going to want to pay him next year too. And are you really ready to commit $50 million to $60 million a year to two top wide receivers? That seems like a lot for a team that is spending a lot on defense. So let's see here. Vinny Aguakun, what will it take for a TJ Watt defensive player of the year season? I feel like he'd have to break the sack record at this point. The disrespect is ridiculous. Andrew, what do you think it would take to see TJ Watt take home another DPOY trophy at the end of this year?
TJ Watt may be able to break the sack record and them still not give him the DPOY. I mean, this man is so disrespected across the league. I would think that would do it based on sack totals. That's probably what it's going to take. The league almost looks at it as if he does nothing except rush the passer. That's his best trait, but it's not like he's a liability against the run or anything like that. Sometimes he's sent out on an all-out blitz and sometimes may overrun the run, but that wasn't his assignment anyways. And I think what the Steelers have at linebacker now is some good run stuffers. You have guys like Peyton Wilson who can tackle in space. You have Landon Roberts who played great last year. Holcomb, if he comes back healthy. You have guys who can tackle at that second level, and I think that lowers a lot of the stress for Watt to just be able to go out and be the sack artist again. And I think he would get it more than likely if he did break the sack record. I don't know if anything less, really. I think Vinny, you're right on with this. I'm not sure anything less is enough for the league to give him the credit he deserves.
I mean, you see it all the time in the league where the NFL and its constituents and its I guess it's the mind, right? The mind hive of the NFL, whether that's the cognoscenti. That's what I'm trying to say. The NFL cognoscenti. They target specific players that they are like, this guy, it's time for this guy to get one. Micah Parsons is that guy for me this year. Like, the NFL narrative is going to do everything it can to get somebody other than TJ Watt and even maybe Myles Garrett at this point, who has his now. Maybe they cool off on that front. But Micah Parsons has been really good. He's had a lot of flashy seasons. He's put up a lot of good stats. He's an elite pass rusher, an elite playmaker. This is the kind of guy that, plays for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, does the NFL push this narrative enough to where he walks away with it in the end, or are they going to be actually fair and square in how they deal it? Afton brings up a list, I guess, that put Myles Garrett at number 1, Parsons at 2, and TJ Watt at number 6. I did not see that list. That to me is ridiculous, beyond ridiculous. And at this point, that's got to be like, the person writing that has to be like a Steelers fan, right? That's just doing that to get TJ like totally amped up so he goes off this year, right? That's
it's probably Mark Madden.
Yeah, it's Mark Madden. That's right. I don't know. Vinny, going back to your question, I think TJ Watt, to have a defensive player of the year season, he has to be clearly the best beyond any chance of fabrication. And it just is hard for me to see that happening unless he does break the sack record, unless he does. I mean, if he gets like 20 sacks and nobody else is beyond 15 or 16 or so, and he has a couple picks or, changes games. The Steelers are one of the teams at the top throughout the whole year. I think that narrative changes things as well. So we'll see how it goes. But if I'm picking a front runner for it, just based on who I know is going to go out and produce, TJ Watt is that. But I just don't know if the NFL gives it to him. The guy should have 3, maybe even 4 in his closet right now, is the way it should be. So, but that is obviously not the case. We'll see how it plays out. Andrew, we're talking that the boys are going to be back in town this week, and training camp is getting rolling. And early on, we were talking about Matt Canada and the offense. And I went to a training camp last year. I don't know. Have you ever been to training camp, Andrew?
I haven't. It's kind of on a bucket list type stuff that I want to do, my invisible bucket list. But yes.
There you go. Yeah. My question was, maybe for those who had been before to multiple training camps in different offensive regimes, is they could tell a difference in like Todd Haley's offense or even Randy Fichtner's offense in like the detail. Cause we hear so much about how Arthur Smith's offense is so detailed. And that was what was missing in Matt Canada's. Just the bystanders, watching one training camp practice last year and not having anything to reference it off of, I couldn't say one way or the other. But, whether or not that would be able to be picked out from a crowd is something that would be interesting to me. So I wasn't sure if you had been before, but talking about the offense in general, do you think Arthur Smith's biggest attribute is the details that he's bringing to the offense that Canada was unable to get across? Or does he bring more to the table than just, he's a little more detail oriented than Matt Canada? I think he brings more, but what say you?
I think he brings more. And I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago on the fix, that Arthur Smith doesn't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel or try this entirely new offense nobody's seen about. It was like when you look at Kansas City and when they were best last year, toward the end of the season, they weren't running the craziest of concepts that we've ever seen Kansas City run. It started off with basic concepts. They would add their own little twist to, but they would keep it mixed up. They wouldn't be doing the same thing over and over. They would keep it fresh, but they wouldn't be trying to entirely reinvent the wheel. And it felt like at times either Matt Canada did absolutely nothing innovative, or he would try to reinvent the wheel on some jet sweep that really looked the same as everything else, but it was this really new thing, and everyone just caught on very quickly, and it was ended up being a pretty basic thing that didn't help the Steelers at all. I do think that Arthur Smith will help in just getting back to basics in the running game and a straightforward downhill attack that matches what the Steelers have the ability to do with the newer guys, the younger guys up front, as well as the 2 running backs they have that are most more downhill guys. I really think that he can help in that area. I don't expect him being maybe to the level that we saw Tennessee's offense with Derrick Henry, because Henry was just a special guy. And even Ryan Tannehill, he did have his best years with Arthur Smith, but it wasn't like he was earth-shatteringly good. It was that he had such a good running game, he could just play off that, and he was very efficient. And that's all he needs to be, though, for the Steelers. The Steelers don't need to have a passer thrown for 5,000 yards this year to go anywhere. They just need to be better. They need to be middle of the pack. And I think that Arthur Smith can definitely bring that with maybe an offense that may not be the most innovative in the league, but if you have a few plays that work and defenses can't stop, who cares if you're innovative or not, as long as you can be efficient in what you do.
Exactly. I think that that's where it's going to come down to, is like the Steelers might actually be good at the thing they want to be good at this year under Arthur Smith. Even in down years for the Falcons, their rushing attack has always been good. It's always been either elite or, good. So I think the Steelers are going to be in a category now where they have an identity, and that identity might be enough with this defense to do something special this year, despite a tough schedule, despite an extremely tough AFC. I mean, you and I will go through our predictions here soon on the Steelers Fix when we do that show and give our playoff predictions and everything like that. The AFC is going to be hard, man. I don't know how we're going to do that, but we'll get to that when we get to it. At this point, though, we're going to take a break here on. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I want to bring up one thought here from Dennis Povlak. The best way to see if the offensive system is working is in the joint practice against the Bills, in my opinion. That is one of the reasons I'm a fan of doing that. I think that you get a little bit of a taste of what other teams or how you can perform against another team, right? And I know it's just preseason. I know it's just a training camp practice. It's not going to be the depth of the playbook or anything like that. But and no fans will be in attendance for that one. I think that one's closed to the public. So we'll just have to rely on reports from reporters if they're allowed in for that to see how that goes. So one thing that I would look for with that is, can the offensive line push people around still? Does the defense make things hard for people up front? And the rest is just kind of here or there, whatever you're going to get out of that. So I'm excited to see that. For that reason, let's go ahead and take our break. On the other side, we'll answer a couple of these questions about training camp from some of the listeners here. If you have a question, keep it coming. 76 of you watching right now. We need a lot more questions to keep the show rolling. We'll be right back here on the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A after this. And welcome back to the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. Jeremy Betts, Andrew Wilbar, joining me from the car. Technical difficulties being as they are. The whole world's going through technical difficulties right now, Andrew, with the cyber meltdown or whatever. So I think, it's only fair that it touches us a little bit here, even if that's not exactly what that is. So let's go ahead and start answering some more questions here. Omar's Burner asks, Jeremy, how often do you believe you'll see 2 QBs play in camp? I think Justin Fields is going to get some snaps. I don't think Russell Wilson's going to get every look, and not because I think that there's an actual real Justin Fields has a chance to usurp Russell Wilson competition going on here, but I just think that they want to see what can this guy do? What things can we ask him to do this year while Russ is our starter? And then at least enough to get him to where, because QB injuries are a big deal coming off last year, more QB injuries than ever in the history of the league last year. Offensive line play is deteriorating a little bit. Defensive lines are getting better. Defenses know how to attack quarterbacks. So having a second guy ready to go is extremely important. And so I think Justin Fields is going to get a lot of reps this training camp. But don't sit back and think necessarily that Fields is going to have a lot of competition reps. More so, we just need this guy to know the offense. We need him to be ready in case Russ goes down, in case Russ really struggles even. But as far as and I may be misinterpreting this question completely here. So let me answer it from the other side too. Jeremy, how often do you believe you'll see 2 QB plays in camp? So maybe both quarterbacks on the field is the question. So if that is the question, I don't know how often they'll do that. Honestly, I think they'll have a package for Fields where he comes in and Russ goes out. Maybe Russ goes out wide or something like that on the goal line, so you don't have to sub him off the field completely. But I just don't know if they're going to have like reverses and a bunch of trick plays with 2 QBs on the field all at the same time. But what do you think, Andrew?
This almost sounds like I don't know if did you play basketball or any sports in high school, Jeremy?
I played basically everything in high school.
So let's say, I guess I'll illustrate as basketball because I played shortly in basketball in high school. It's kind of like one of those things that you would do almost at the end of a practice. You're just kind of messing around. You're doing something like, let's try this just to see what happens with it. And you'll try a bunch of weird things. And then there'll be one thing that actually happens. And it's like, could we actually apply this into a game? Could we actually do this? You need to kind of know where I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I could see
like Kendrick Green at fullback last year in training.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. You can guarantee at some point in these camp practices, the Steelers are going to be just messing around. You'll have some weird plays. I highly doubt that will be Justin Fields returning kicks, but being on the field at the same time as Russell Wilson, or, how are they going to do that? You got to think there's going to be some trick plays up the sleeve, maybe not even exclusive to the 2 quarterbacks. You just see a bunch of trick plays in general, but I got to think that that's got to be included. You could have a reverse pass. You could have 2 QB sets, maybe where a screen pass to Fields and Fields has blocker set up. And, I could see them trying something like that, especially even before they get into full tackle mode. I could see them just, even in the early days in practice, when they're just messing around and trying to play it safe, I could see them totally trying some weird concepts and then be like, this actually worked when we did it for fun. Let's implement it and see if we can actually make it work.
I've got to tell you my greatest my greatest accomplishment in high school football. Okay, so I was like the gadget quarterback, but I played running back mostly on offense. But my coach was the most vanilla guy ever on offense, and I said, "Coach, we got to try this for goal line, man." Where we would run like a fake sneak, but instead of the ball going to the quarterback, you just snap it through his legs to the running back and run a sweep out wide. And man, it worked every time we tried it in practice. And so we did try it in a game one time, and I fumbled the snap as the running back and had to just fall on it, and it didn't work. And so coach was like, "See, that's why we don't do this." And I was like, "No, coach, it would have worked. I just screwed it up." So, great accomplishment to get it installed in the game plan. Not so great in the execution on the field. But hey, I agree. You could see something like that. It would be very interesting to me. Sorry, Omar's burner, for totally taking your question another way and reading it wrong the first time. I want to bring this up because we were talking about in the back half of the first half of the show. Russ Omenstein says, Jeremy, I've been to camp with Wisenhunt, Haley, Arians, Fiechner, Canada. Yes, you could see a huge difference in Canada's detail. I knew coming out of Canada's camp, we would be predictable, one-dimensional. That is really good insight, Russ. I appreciate that. I think a fun guessing game would be who was the most detailed out of all of these guys. And I would probably go with Wisenhunt or Haley. But I don't know. Arians could be on that list too of very detailed guys. I just think Arians was more of the lean back and bomb it out guy. And Wisenhunt and Haley were more calculated with how they brought their game plans together. So I just think those would be the most calculated and most detailed guys. But that's good information, Andrew. What do you take from this as well? It's like maybe those of us who missed some of that in up close interaction were overstating what the Steelers offense could be in retrospect.
Yeah, Arians, I agree with what you were saying, but I'd be curious, Russ, if maybe you can put in the comment section how Randy Fichtner compared to the rest of these guys, because obviously Matt Canada was bad. I would say he was even worse than Fichtner, but I would say that Fichtner was pretty predictable as well, with so many bubble screens, so many of the same concepts. I'd just be curious to see where he would say he rates compared to the rest of them and how maybe close. You said there's a huge difference in Canada's detail. I'm wondering where Fichtner would compare to that or even to the other three as well. I'd be very interested to get your thoughts on that. But very good insight.
Absolutely. I just saw a real fun comment, Andrew. Should I bring that one up? I don't know if you saw it.
I didn't. Being on my phone, I'm not really moving around a whole lot, so I haven't seen much of the comments, so bring it up.
Okay, there you go. What you got to say? What you got to say about this?
Account.
Huh?
It's probably a fake account.
Fake account. That's what I think too.
No,
There's no way anybody actually thinks
have,
that about you. I'm just kidding.
No, I have no clue who that is. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. God bless you. You have a good one.
I'm a little hurt. I'm a little hurt over here, actually.
Yeah. Well, what your name was? Okay, Katie. Yeah, make sure to puts a compliment in there for Jeremy to feel well. Don't let Jeremy be left out of this.
Put some love in here for Jeremy. I might cry afterwards if I don't get any, but okay. Vinny, we'll move on here. Vinny, does it bother you guys that a 3-4 outside linebacker gets listed as a defensive lineman? Just say they're in the front seven. Watt is an outside linebacker, not a DN. Just me being a football nerd. That does play into this. 3-4 defenses play differently, right? They ask their edge rushers to do more things. And I think you can do that when you draft a guy and you develop a guy like TJ Watt. And even Alex Highsmith has proven to be a guy you can drop into coverage a little bit. He can play backside against the run. And you're not always asking defensive ends in a 4-3 scheme to do stuff like that. So, and I know the Steelers run a lot of sub-package football, and it ends up being a 4-man front with those two guys on the outside anyway. But it does, I get for rankings why you would just put like all the edge rushers together and not concern yourself with whether they play outside linebacker or defensive end. But it does play into what you're asking of those players. And so you have to come at it with that caveat, or you're discounting a huge part of what each player brings to the table. Do you agree with that, Andrew?
I agree. It's one of those, I don't know how to describe it, but just one of those things that would kind of get under your skin as a fan, especially if you're a true diehard, and even the terminology of everything and how it goes down. But I 100% agree with what you're saying.
I'm trying to see here. Okay, here's a good question. Dennis Povlak, I hope it doesn't happen right away, but what happens if Fields outplays Russ? I've said it from the beginning. This is best case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If Fields is just looks far and away the better quarterback and wins the starting job outright. I just think he's got more upside. He's got more talent at this stage in his career. You want the young guy to win the job. But I just don't know if the Steelers are going to give him that chance necessarily this year. What do you think, though, Andrew?
I kind of agree. I think this is Russ's job, but I will say if Fields beats him out, the Steelers probably aren't getting anything more than the 7th-round pick for trading Russell Wilson. It is what it is. If you lose to a guy that got traded for a later-round pick that the Bears really didn't believe in anymore, then you're probably not going to get a whole lot for Russell Wilson if he gets beat out by that same quarterback. So I think Russell Wilson is the best immediate fit for Arthur Smith's offense just because of his ability to play under center. It's going to take Fields a little time to adapt. But even in his introductory interviews in the locker room for Fields after his first practice with the team, he was like, it was a lot of new concepts. He may have used the word exciting or something like that. But it is different for him, and it's going to take time because he can't expect to be playing so much out of the gun like he did in Chicago and like he did in college. It is very much an old school pro style offense that Russell Wilson's played in a lot. It's very similar to what Darrell Bevell ran for several years in Seattle when Russell Wilson was there and had good years there as well. I'd argue it's even more run-centric than Darrell Bevell. So I think that because of that, Wilson does have the upper hand, but Fields outplays him. The only downside to that is you're probably not getting much for Russell Wilson. Even if Russell has some left in the tank, you're either hoping that he'll be okay being the backup and not causing a problem as the backup, or you release him and get nothing for him, or you try to trade him for practically nothing.
Let me ask you this, Andrew. If Russell Wilson starts the whole year for the Pittsburgh Steelers, what is their ceiling?
With this schedule, I'd say 12 wins.
Okay. Are they a AFC championship contender?
Yes, I think it's possible, especially if you had one other weapon on offense. But I just with who we have, I'd say it's possible.
Okay. Let me ask you the same question, but Justin Fields starts the whole year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Does that raise their ceiling to you, or does that lower it, or is it about the same?
Ooh, that's actually a really tough question. I haven't given much thought to that. I would, oh man, if he is the one who wins it outright, though, I can't say that the Steelers would have less upside, because I definitely think there's more upside with Fields. So if he's playing as well as it would take, I mean, to get to 12 or maybe even 13 wins, I guess I wouldn't rule 13 wins out, but just with the schedule, it's so hard. I would probably still say 12 wins, but I would be a little bit more confident, honestly, in the Steelers going places in the playoffs and competing with, say, a Baltimore. Not that the Steelers can't beat them already, but a Baltimore or a Buffalo, having someone with younger legs, a guy who can kind of match the athleticism on the other side.
How good would a divisional round playoff game, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, with Justin Fields versus Lamar Jackson be?
Oh, that'd
How
be so much
good would
fun.
that be? Oh man,
It'd be so much fun.
I mean, you have to want that, right? As a football fan, that would be amazing. Now, I'm going to actually contradict you here a little bit, and I'm going to say the Steelers' ceiling in 2024 is higher if Russell Wilson plays the full season and is good enough to handle that than if Justin Fields does. I just think Russ has been there, done that, helps a lot. His experience. I think he's clutch in big time situations. I think he's clutch in the red zone, and we haven't seen that yet from Justin Fields. While I do believe the offense's upside is higher with Fields, I can't say that the team's upside is higher. It's kind of a weird contradiction in my mind, but that's just where I would come from with this. But it's really close. It is a tough question to answer. It really is. Let's jump back in here to a couple the conversation we were having before. Gavin Anthony says, Wisenhunt and Arians were before my time. Haley was the most intricate of the ones I saw. I can see Arians and Wisenhunt being more detailed. And then Russ does come back and help us out a little bit more. Thanks, Russ. Actually was close between Wisenhunt and Haley. Would give Haley the edge. And yes, actually, Fichtner was more predictable than Canada. That's crazy that he was even more predictable than Matt Canada. Maybe that had to do with, Roethlisberger liked things a certain way, and Fichtner was willing to just do that. Kind of like, I don't know, Andrew, let's extrapolate this out a little bit. Ben Roethlisberger and Randy Fichtner, and it didn't work, right? It didn't work with those two to put up elite offensive numbers. Is that similar to what we'll see with best buds Christian, or I'm sorry. Now his name's going to escape me. The Packers the Jets offensive coordinator and Aaron Rodgers.
Oh,
Hackett,
former Broncos head coach.
Yeah. Nate Hackett.
I know who Nathaniel Hackett.
Are we seeing the same type of situation going to happen here where because Nate Hackett's just going to let Rodgers do whatever he wants, it's not going to quite work the way that they think it might?
Letting an older quarterback like that, from what I've seen, even with Ben Roethlisberger, the only exception maybe being Tom Brady. But all these other older quarterbacks that have been in playoffs, whether it be a Rivers or a Roethlisberger or Rodgers, anyone in that same category, even going back to Peyton Manning, really, letting them be them for the regular season works.
Yeah.
But when it gets to the postseason and it matters, sometimes it's not a bad idea to rely on the guy you paid to call the plays rather than the person you're paying to play quarterback. And just, if you don't trust your offensive coordinator enough to know the best for the situation, why even have an offensive coordinator if you're going to let the quarterback run it anyways? That's just my own philosophy.
Yeah. I definitely see where that's a good argument to have here. Christopher Hockenberry, can we actually give Arthur Smith some slack if a player or two doesn't work? Practice makes perfect. Want to see better run plays, please. I think this is crucial. We've talked about this a lot. It could be a slow start for this offense. Lots of new pieces, lots of things to figure out. I will definitely be one of the people saying, well, give it some time to see if it works. Give it a few weeks and see if we can get something rolling here. But Andrew, are you in that same camp, or are you expecting this to just be a lot better right off the bat because it's such a significant upgrade on Canada?
It will still be an uphill battle like there is with any change, and not to mention the additions on the offensive line. While they are good, gelling takes time. And Arthur Smith's coming from a place where really the offensive line wasn't that bad, but the skill players weren't bad. It was just the quarterback position wasn't that great, and I felt like he misused the running backs that they had. I felt very strongly about that last year.
Yeah.
So those are my concerns with Smith, but I will say that it's going to take time, and the key to any good offensive performance is offensive line play. And if you have that and a quarterback, you have a very good chance of succeeding. We think the Steelers will have a quarterback. At least I do. I think you do as well. The Steelers, one of these two, I believe, will work out for the Steelers.
Yeah.
And all that left is needed to have success would be that offensive line coming along. And I think as soon as you see Jones get comfortable on the left side, it won't be a big learning curve for Fautanu on the right. Once Jones gets comfortable on that left side and the guards are comfortable with him playing there, I think that you see a much improved entire offense. However the offensive line does this year is how the Steelers will do on offense.
Good stuff. Let's bring up a couple final questions here. This one's fun with the Steelers addition of Tyler Matakevich coming back to the team. Dirty Red, as he's called. Dennis Povlak asked, with Dirty Red being brought back, is that the end for Mark Robinson? Andrew, what do you think?
I'm afraid so. I honestly didn't think Mark Robinson played as bad as some people thought last year down the stretch, especially in the Ravens game. I thought he played really well. Maybe not in coverage as much, but against the run when he had that forced fumble and the sack, I thought he did a really good job. He showed some good effort in there, but there's obviously a reason the Steelers haven't trusted him for more. I definitely think that Matakevich is in the front seat to be that fifth inside linebacker, assuming the Steelers keep one.
Special teams is so important now, especially with the new kickoff rules and everything. So the Steelers are probably just trying to round out with guys that they know can at least play there. And they might be willing to sacrifice a little bit of upside on defense at the very back end of the roster for some stability on special teams. I think that that's a fine move with the roster that they've built. So I can agree with this for sure. I think Mark Robinson's time is short for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we'll see, though. There could be an injury. Cole Holcomb could be behind schedule at some point. We'll find all that out here in the next few days. It's exciting, Andrew. We're going to talk on the Steelers Fix this week about some new faces that we're excited about for training camp. Do you want to give a teaser? Anybody that you're thinking about that we'll talk on the show?
Well, since we were on the inside linebackers, just kind of, a really late sleeper nugget, I would throw out Kyron Johnson as that hybrid linebacker guy. Could play out or in. A newcomer, but an underrated one at that. He could be a guy I could see getting some camp buzz.
I like it. So be sure to tune in to the Steelers Fix to get more on that. I am looking forward to that. I think I'm going to definitely bring up on the show Dennis Lowry. I think that he's a guy that has a chance to be impactful for
Dean
the Steelers. Lowry? I'm sorry. Yeah. Dean Lowry. Yeah. What did I say? Dennis Lowry?
Yeah.
Dean Lowry is a guy that I could see being impactful for the Steelers this year. So tune in to the Steelers Fix on Tuesday to hear more about that and our discussion there. Thank you all for tuning in to this show. We appreciate each and every one of you, as always, for your questions, for your attentiveness, for tuning in to hear us blab about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Looking forward to training camp coming up. Andrew, we'll see you here soon on the Steelers Fix and other shows. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great night.